Break the chains of your past. Welcome to your triumphant recovery. This is Wags Creations.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Addiction and Recovery by Wags Creations. My name is Matt and I'm your host. Today I'm going to be talking about just some of the things that I've done and learned in my recovery that's really helped me stay clean. That's really made the difference this time. This is only my third time in treatment, but I'm hoping this time it sticks, so I'm going to share some of the things that I've worked that's got me to my 158 days today. And then I'm going to continue to practice throughout my recovery. And the biggest thing is that I've learned is, just being abstinent from drugs is not enough. There's a stat out there that I learned that only 3 to 5% of people that have tried meth, that try to quit without any type of program or anything like that, just try to quit cold turkey, only 3 to 5% of them make it clean and get clean and stay clean. Now listen to this. Now, people that actually go into a program and work a program for a year have a 75% rate of staying clean. Look how big of a difference that stat is. 3 to 5%, all the way up to 75%. The difference is they worked a program for a straight year and they have a 75% rate of staying clean. That's amazing. And that just goes to show you that working a program works. And I'm not saying that's going to work for 100% of the people out there. Like I said, there is 3 to 5% that actually can do it on their own. But are you willing to take that chance? A 3 to 5% chance? I don't think so. Not me anyways. The only way I was able to learn that, I learned a lot of things coming to, a detox and working, being in a sober living house. But I've gotten so much more at going into NA meetings. Not only do they teach you the literature, tell you to get a sponsor, work the steps or die, which is true. It's just, you get to connect with people. The opposite of addiction is connection, I believe. I heard that an addict say that the other day, and I thought that was a great, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for connection with people. And if you can come to a group of people, a bunch of strangers that are experiencing a lot of the same things that you are in life, because we're all sick people. We're all trying to numb some kind of trauma or pain that we have, and that's why we began using, and so a lot of these people have, even though their stories might be completely different, there are still similarities in the way they've interacted in life and things that they've gone through that I can find that I can relate to, in my life, my story might be completely different, and that's just the amazing thing about Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm going to talk about Narcotics Anonymous a lot because I love that program. It saved my life. And it can save yours too. I'm telling you, I was one of those people that like, just, and I show up to meetings, it just seemed like the same shit over and over. And felt like people were just regurgitating recovery and sobriety. And I was getting sick of it, but at the same time, I knew I didn't want that old life. I knew I wanted something different. So I got comfortable being uncomfortable, basically. I know that's a saying that a lot of people say, but I had to get comfortable in being uncomfortable, and once I was able to do that and stop trying to control everything in my life, something really happened, when I was able to show up to meetings and just come up there, just open-minded with an open heart and everything, and actually really listen and start taking the suggestions that people were telling me in the meetings and listening to what people were talking about and what was working through their experiences and things. Something really happened. I started feeling a peaceness about myself, a calmness. Once I surrendered everything and realized that I can't control anything, I can control some things. The things that I can control are my actions from day to day as far as working a program and making sure I stay clean. Don't use no matter what. But with that comes, having a support system, changing my environment. And that's why I came out here to LA to get out of Fresno because, I came out here to LA 8 months ago for 90 days and thought I had a beat. I was doing great. I was the model client, everything. I started my own business. I produced 2 music albums. I was doing phenomenal. So I thought I had a beat, but I had no idea. I didn't realize that I didn't even take the time to work on myself on the inside, because all this surface level stuff was happening and I had this euphoric feeling all the time. And I really didn't give myself a chance to work on the inside. I wasn't really being totally honest with myself, to tell you the truth. And so when I went back to Fresno and to a familiar environment around familiar people, some of those old friends, it took nothing to get me to use again. I relapsed like that within a day being back home. I mean, when I was on the train actually going home, I could see my town in the distance, and I got this gut wrenching feeling in my stomach, man. And I right then I knew I made a terrible decision, because I had all these plans when I was going back to Fresno. I wasn't planning on just going back out of the streets, like I'm not that dumb. I had plans of going to staying at a person's house that doesn't use. I was going to start working in recovery. I had all these plans. But the minute I got into that town, man, that all changed. I went to that person's house, dropped off all my shit, and then I went to the streets. And I went and found my DOC fentanyl. And man, it was a bad mistake. But I realized I made the mistake right away. So that's why I got myself back out into treatment out here in LA. Got myself back out of that environment. And man, I felt defeated this time. It wasn't the same feeling this time. It didn't feel good. I was in detox by myself. So I was forced to really kind of be okay with being alone with my thoughts and everything. And that was crazy because I'm never good at that. But I learned how to, and I learned to love myself again, and I think it was really beneficial. I think that happened for a reason, that I went into detox by myself. Because it helped me tremendously. Don't get me wrong, I still struggled when I got out of detox. When I first got into sober living, I was still going through depression. Things weren't really working out for me the way I wanted them to. I was still kind of stuck in that, why aren't things working out the way they did the first time I came out here, and I couldn't get past that. I was like, it was so great the last time I was out here. Why isn't it like that this time? But, with that said, there was times where I thought about giving up, and going back to Fresno, but I remembered what happened the last time. I played that tape through in my head, and I knew that I didn't want that I needed to try something different. So I knew I needed to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I started listening to what people were telling me, started listening to what they were saying in groups, and not just being there and being present in groups, but actually really listening, having an open mind and an open heart when I was listening. And that's when things started to change after that 60-day mark. I started having a peace within myself that I'd never really felt before. I've had peace, but not like this. I started, having a little bit more confidence in myself. I started, I tried finding things to do to like stay involved in recovery that I could do. Cause I've always been a person that likes giving back and likes helping people. So I was trying to figure out how to do that in a way that wasn't gonna, put me in harm's way, cause I still was kind of talking to people still back in Fresno, but mainly just about trying to get them out here and get them help. And so, but in doing so, I really kind of stopped reaching out to certain people. I just, basically what I do is I get on Facebook and I like I'm doing now, like I do a podcast about addiction and recovery. So that way people that want it will show up and watch it, and hopefully that'll help them. Cause if you try to force it on people, they're not going to be receptive of it. I've learned that too. You can lead a horse to water, but if it's not thirsty, it ain't going to drink. But yeah, just willpower alone is not going to be enough in recovery. I don't know if I said it, but only 3 to 5% that people that are using meth that try to quit cold turkey actually stay clean. 3 to 5%. Now, people that have actually worked a program and been in a program for a year, that percentage goes up to 75%. That's amazing. 5% to 75%. Cold turkey, no program, to working a program. 75%. That is amazing. I never knew that. I just looked that up a little bit ago. So that's just proof right there that a program does work. And your program is going to be different than the next person's program. Everybody's different. We're all made up differently. That's what makes us unique. But still, the information in the program is what's the important part. Now it's up to you how you're going to apply it to your life, and on your with your daily routines and things like that. And speaking of routines, that was important for me too. I had to make sure and get a routine. That's why I signed up for school. I needed to start getting some kind of positive things in my life. I was looking for a job constantly, but I didn't want to just jump into just any job. I needed something that was going to complement my recovery. I was looking for a job as a technician in, a detox. Still kind of am, I do have an amazing opportunity coming up here tomorrow. Actually, I got an interview It's a second interview with this marketing firm here in LA as an assistant manager. The pay has a great pay. So I'm blessed. I hope I get that job. I'm going to go there tomorrow and hope for the best,
Thank you for watching my podcast. If you can please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss new episodes. This is my passion project. Thank you for watching.
But yeah, it's because of the fact that I'm working this program that these opportunities are presenting themselves. Narcotics Anonymous has just been a blessing and a godsend for me. Getting into service was huge. Like I said, all the things that it says in the literature, it's just so important. All those little cliche sayings, they're so true. Everything that they say in that book has come true in my life, that I didn't necessarily buy into before, but once I bought into it and started applying it in my life, it's all worked. It really has. There's a lot of great books out there. There's It Works How and Why. There's this Living Clean book. It's an amazing book. There's the Basic Text, the Big Blue book. There's just also this other workbook that goes with It Works How and Why. It's great for working your steps. Great for when you get a sponsor. It's amazing. It makes it real thorough. Our literature is good stuff, but really, changing your environment, changing people's places and things, obviously, getting new friends. You got to cut those old friends off. You have to, you can still stay in contact with them. I'm not saying that. I still consider those people out there on the street my family. I love those people. And if they ever want help, they know where to find me, though. I'm not going to keep trying to, force them into recovery or force them to try to change their lives. If they want to be out there, then that's on them. Just like me, an opportunity was presented to me, and it was up to me to take that opportunity and run with it. So I did. And here I am today, and so that's what I try to do is I present people with an opportunity, and if they're just tired of that same old bullshit, then they can take it, and I will definitely steer them in the right direction and help them as any way I can to get them out of here and get clean. I think everybody deserves a shot at a good life, it just all depends on if you want it and your willingness, but if you're willing, trust me, there are people out there willing to help you. I promise you. Because the gift of life is just amazing. It really is. And huge believer in that you get out of life what you put into it. And that's why it's just so important to work a program. Because willpower alone is just not enough. It really isn't. And I used to consider myself a very strong-willed person. And I am a strong-willed person, very strong-willed. It took a lot of willpower to get into this program, but I couldn't do it just on that alone. There's no way whatsoever. Especially because my drug of choice was fentanyl. So the withdrawal from that was terrible. So unless I took myself out of that environment to where I knew that I couldn't go get those drugs right away, no matter how bad I was feeling, that was the only way I was going to get through it. And even then, I still almost didn't make it. I remember day 4, man, I was just in so much pain, yelling and screaming. I remember the poor technician, she was scared, and I told her to call the owners and I wanted to be discharged. Where the hell was I going to go at 3:00 in the morning, find a train ride back to Fresno? Yeah, right. So luckily, the owners had told me they couldn't get there for another hour. So I went back up in my room and jumped in the shower and stayed there for like 3 hours. And luckily, that's what got me through that final push of that pain. And the pain had subsided, so I ended up staying. Thank God. But that's just how bad that withdrawal is and the pain from that is, And nowadays, I think I always play that tape through, when I ever have any thoughts of using anything like that, like remembering that pain. I'll never forget that. I do not want to put myself through that ever again. There's a facilitator that speaks in one of our groups for sober living. He talks about a lot, like, and I like this analogy, like if you know a car is going to wreck, why would you get into it? If you know 100% for sure that car is going to crash, would you get into that car? Absolutely not, right? So the same goes for using. You know what the end result is if you continue using. Jails, institution, or death. Guaranteed 100%. 100% guaranteed. So knowing that, why would you do that? Easier said than done, right? But that's why we have the program in Narcotics Anonymous. They help. Anytime I'm having a bad day or I'm down and out, and that's a great thing about this Zoom platform. You can find a meeting literally at any given time of day. 3:00 in the morning, meeting. 7 o'clock in the morning, meeting. 8 o'clock at night, meeting. There's always a meeting on Zoom. So there's no excuses to not find a meeting, In fact, this whole time that I've been out here this time, I have not gone to an in-person meeting. Yeah, I've had my groups with my sober living and stuff, but I haven't gone to an actually outside Narcotics Anonymous meeting, which I plan to. I have my 6 months coming up here pretty soon, so I'm definitely going to go get my chip there. But I just, I have a lot going on, and I got very fortunate where I found a Zoom meeting that I absolutely love and adore, and I found a family there. I really, really do. And I started becoming a service at that meeting. I host a meeting once a week, and that meeting alone saved my life. And I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody, but I just know I was so thankful for the Zoom platform, and the Narcotics Anonymous meetings on there. It really saved my life. And me, I'm a kind of a tech savvy person, so I like doing stuff on my computer anyway. So, and obviously I like doing stuff with my microphone and camera and stuff. So it kind of worked out for me, and, but also, just getting on there and sharing too. I mean, that's huge as well. I know a lot of people are shy and, don't know what to share or talk about, and it don't even matter. Just get on there and start small, introduce yourself, and just, talk about how your day is going or what, or maybe something that you're going through, and that's what's great about these meetings. You can go in there and just be vulnerable. No one's going to judge you, and if for some reason anybody did, they're gone. That's just not we don't have room for that. It's a a healing place, a place where you can come and just feel comfortable and just, be raw, and just unfiltered, unchained. So yeah, I just really love it at Narcotics Anonymous, guys. I'm going to have a guest come on here in the next episode. I'm not sure it's going to be one of my roommates or a friend, a good old friend that I used to, drink and drug with back in Fresno. We had some good times. Don't get me wrong. Some bad times as well. We had some good times. But now we have even better times being sober and clean, And I just remember he got clean before I did. He went through this program called Teen Challenge. And I went through that. And he's a really, really religious person. I'm not that religious. I'm very spiritual, but not very religious. I do believe in a higher power, but I'm not going to get into the details of that. But he's a very religious person. And he used to come find me out there on the streets, man, pleading for me to get clean and stuff and offer me a place to go and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't ready. I was not ready. And so finally I came out here to LA, man, and he found out and he was just so thrilled. I've never seen someone so happy, man. He literally messages me every day, probably twice a day. And he's actually out here in LA. He's actually he's going to school through their, ministry program. He's going to become, part of the ministry program and stuff like that for Teen Challenge. He's just doing amazing. I'm so proud of him. But yeah, I'm going to have him come on here and just talk with me, and we'll go, talk about some of our experiences, back in when we were using and stuff like that, and just how we kind of overcome and what he's done in his recovery and what's really helped him, so you guys can hear from a different perspective. You guys don't have to just sit here and listen to me talk the whole time. You'll get to hear someone else's perspective. And then eventually, the next episode after that, I'll probably have one of my roommates or, someone else here at the compound talk about their experience and what's working for them. Because there are some people here thriving right now. It's amazing. So yeah, that's what's look forward to, guys. I appreciate you being here. I love you guys. Go out there and kill it. I know I'm going to. Wags out.
Don't be afraid to call for help at 1-800-662-HELP.